Have you ever met someone who acts like they don't care, but deep down you feel they do? They pull away when things get close, go silent when emotions rise, and you start to question if you ever mattered at all. But here's the truth. Some people love in silence. Especially the avoidant types. They crave connection, yet fear it at the same time. And they can't say what they feel, but their actions whisper the truth louder than words ever could. So today, I'm going to share 6 powerful signs that prove you are his secret obsession, even if he can't say it out loud. Because when you know these signs, you stop doubting your worth and start seeing the truth behind his silence. So if you've ever felt that someone cares but just can't say it, trust your intuition. Avoidance might never shout their feelings, but love has its own language. It shows up in presence, in patterns, in the way they return when they swore they wouldn't. But here's the final truth. Being someone's secret obsession shouldn't be your goal. Being someone's safe space should. Because love that hides in fear isn't love that grows. So cherish the signs, understand the struggle, but never forget your worth. You deserve a love that speaks, not just one that stays silent. He disappears, withdraws, and sometimes vanishes into silence, leaving you to wonder if you ever truly mattered. But then, just when you've started to move on or convince yourself that he's gone for good, he reappears. A message, a comment, a sudden attempt to reconnect. It might seem casual, but it's never random. When someone has an avoidant attachment style, their emotions often run far deeper than they let on. And the space they create is rarely about indifference. It's about fear. Fear of needing too much, fear of being known too deeply, fear of losing control. So, when he finds his way back to you, even after pulling away, it's not because he's confused. It's because he's drawn to you in ways he can't fully understand or admit. The avoidant often lives in contradiction. He wants love but fears its intensity. He longs for closeness yet panics when it starts to feel too real. To him, intimacy feels like standing too close to a fire. It's warm and comforting, but if he lingers too long it might burn. So, he steps back to cool down to regain a sense of safety. But what he doesn't realize is that each time he steps back, he leaves behind a part of himself that's still tethered to you. That invisible emotional cord keeps pulling him back, no matter how far he drifts. His returns aren't accidents, they're emotional gravity. When he texts you out of the blue, it might not be a declaration of love, but it's a quiet way of checking if you're still there. Hey, how have you been? Might sound like small talk, but underneath it's his way of saying, do I still have a place in your world? He's testing the waters, not because he's unsure of you, but because he's unsure of himself. Avoidants crave the comfort of knowing someone is emotionally available to them, even when they can't reciprocate it fully. It gives them a strange sense of safety. The reassurance that connection is still possible without having to face the full vulnerability of it. This pattern, leaving and returning, can be incredibly confusing for the person on the other side. You might start to doubt whether his feelings were ever genuine, but if you look deeper, you'll notice that his actions, even in their inconsistency, reveal emotional investment. If he truly didn't care, he wouldn't circle back. People don't revisit what means nothing to them. The truth is, he's addicted to the emotional familiarity you provide. You represent a place where his heart feels both alive and at risk, a dangerous but irresistible balance. His silence between these cycles isn't emotional absence, it's emotional self-protection. He convinces himself that distance will keep him safe from disappointment or rejection. But what he doesn't realize is that by avoiding pain, he's also avoiding peace. The connection becomes an internal tug of war. The more he tries to suppress what he feels, the stronger it resurfaces. You become the thought that lingers in the quiet moments, the message he types but doesn't send, the memory that won't fade no matter how much he distracts himself. Each time he returns, he may act as though nothing happened, trying to resume where things left off. That's because avoidants often struggle to confront emotional ruptures directly. A simple, hey, replaces an apology, a meme replaces vulnerability. But beneath that lighthearted approach lies a deeper confession: he can't stay away. The emotional bond you share exists in a place words can't quite reach, a space that feels safer to him than any new connection. He knows that with you, there's a kind of emotional understanding he can't replicate elsewhere. So, when he reappears after silence, it's more than nostalgia or convenience. It's his heart trying to find its way back to a sense of safety it doesn't fully know how to maintain. Every return, no matter how subtle, is a message he can't say directly. I still feel something, I just don't know how to handle it. And in that silent coming back, you become both his refuge and his reflection. The one who reminds him that love, even when feared, still has the power to pull him home. Avoidants rarely express their emotions in clear, direct words. They don't say, I miss you, or I care about you. easily, because for them, vulnerability feels like a loss of control. But every now and then something slips through the cracks. In small, unguarded moments, they reveal pieces of themselves that they usually keep hidden from the world. These moments may not seem like much. A story about their childhood, a quiet admission of something that scares them, a confession that catches you by surprise. But in their emotional language, those small revelations mean everything. When he opens up to you, even briefly, it's not casual. It's a quiet act of trust, a fragile sign that you occupy a place in his world few people ever reach. Avoidants have spent much of their lives believing that emotions are dangerous, that showing too much is the same as surrendering power. Somewhere along the way, they learned that people can leave when things get real, so they built emotional armor to protect themselves. That's why when he lets you in, it's not just about sharing information, it's about exposing the part of himself he spent years protecting. He might tell you about a time he felt helpless, or a moment when someone betrayed his trust, or even his private dreams that he doesn't talk about with anyone else. He may not even realize he's doing it. It often comes out in a slip of vulnerability before he quickly changes the subject. But in that fleeting moment, he's showing you his truth. Something he doesn't give away lightly. When an avoidant man feels secretly obsessed, he doesn't display affection in grand gestures or poetic confessions. Instead, he reveals himself in fragments, hoping you'll notice the meaning behind them. He might mention how he can't sleep some nights without saying you're the reason. He might talk about how he struggles to connect with people but feels strangely calm when he's with you. These aren't random statements. They're coded messages, emotional breadcrumbs leading you to his inner world. His words may be few, but they carry weight because for someone like him, expression is a risk, and taking that risk means you matter. Even the way he listens tells a story. He might not be expressive with his own feelings, but when you speak about something deep, he listens differently. He remembers what you say, even when you think he's not paying attention. He might recall a detail from a conversation you had weeks ago, or reference something that mattered to you in passing. That's emotional intimacy for him, showing that he's tuned into you, even when he can't voice his own emotions. It's as though his silence becomes its own language, one that says, "I'm here, even if I don't know how to say it." In relationships, avoidants often struggle with emotional reciprocity. They want closeness but fear it will consume them. So when they begin to open up, it's usually slow and subtle. You might notice him letting you see sides of him he doesn't show anyone else. His humor, his softness, his uncertainty. He might tell you about something he's ashamed of or an insecurity he hides from others. That's his version of saying, "I trust you." He's letting you step behind the walls that keep him safe, and even if he doesn't admit it, he's hoping you won't leave when you see what's inside. Sometimes his vulnerability appears through behavior rather than words. He might do something thoughtful without explaining why, like fixing something for you, sending a song that reminds him of you, or showing up when you least expect it. Avoidants express care through action because it feels safer than saying how they feel. Words make them feel exposed, but actions let them give affection while still maintaining emotional control. It's not that he doesn't feel deeply. It's that his way of showing it has been shaped by fear. When he opens up, even a little, it's a glimpse into the emotional conflict he lives with. He's torn between the need to connect and the instinct to protect. Every small confession is his way of reaching toward you while still holding onto the edges of his safety. And though he may not articulate love or longing directly, those quiet, unguarded moments reveal the truth. He feels it more than he can say. For someone like him, vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the highest form of affection he knows how to give. He might seem detached, calm, even uninterested at times, but the truth is he's watching you far more closely than you think. Avoidants have a unique way of staying emotionally present while pretending they're not. They crave closeness but fear it, so they settle into the background. Observing, remembering, taking mental notes. When he's secretly obsessed with you, his attention becomes his confession. You'll notice that he remembers things you barely recall mentioning. The way you like your coffee, the little detail you shared about your childhood, the movie you said makes you cry. He stores those details because, deep down, you've become important to him. This attention is not casual, it's emotional proof. Even when he keeps his distance, his mind stays connected to you. Avoidants are masters at self-control. They suppress their emotions because they've learned that showing too much can lead to pain. Yet obsession breaks through that control. It's not something they plan. It sneaks up on them. You might notice how he glances at you in a group, but quickly looks away when you meet his eyes. He'll act indifferent, but the way he lingers on your words or remembers your routines tells another story. It's almost as if he's studying you to feel close without having to risk being exposed. For him, watching is safer than speaking, noticing is safer than confessing. You may find that he reacts subtly when something about you changes. You change your hairstyle, and he comments with quiet surprise. You sound different over text, and he asks, "Are you okay?" Those are small moments, but they're revealing. Avoidants don't check in casually, they do it when they care. His attention is selective. He doesn't watch everyone this way. The fact that he notices small shifts in your behavior means he's emotionally attuned to you, even when he acts detached. His silence isn't disinterest, it's surveillance through emotion. This behavior often confuses people. You might think, if he cares that much, why doesn't he just say it? But for the avoidant, vulnerability feels dangerous. Expressing emotion directly risks rejection or dependence, two things that terrify him. So instead, he uses observation as his way of staying connected while keeping control. He tells himself that watching from a distance is enough. That as long as he knows you're okay, he doesn't need to be close. But that's an illusion. The more he watches, the more emotionally entangled he becomes. Every time he checks your social media, rereads old messages, or remembers the sound of your laugh, he feeds the emotional thread that keeps him tied to you. When you speak, he may act casual, but his body language will betray him. The subtle lean forward, the pause before responding, the flicker of emotion he tries to hide, all of it speaks volumes. He might tease you lightly or play indifferent, but those jokes are often his way of saying what he can't say directly. Avoidants communicate affection through layers of disguise. They may appear aloof, but inside, they're constantly analyzing, feeling, wanting. There's also an intensity to how he processes your absence. When you pull away, he notices immediately. He won't chase, not openly, but you'll feel his presence lingering. And maybe he suddenly likes one of your old pictures or texts you something random just to reopen communication. That's his version of reaching out. He needs to know you're still there, even if he can't admit how much it matters. His silence isn't peace, it's tension held tightly beneath the surface. He may also compare others to you, even unconsciously. The people he meets, the conversations he has, they all get measured against what he felt with you. He won't say it out loud, but he'll notice when someone doesn't make him laugh the way you did, or doesn't understand him the way you somehow could. His mind replays the connection, not because he wants to, but because it's imprinted there. For someone who fears dependency, that's a deeply unsettling realization. That someone has become part of their emotional rhythm without permission. So while he might appear unreadable, his attention is the clearest confession he'll ever give. Every remembered detail, every subtle check-in, every quiet moment of awareness reveals more than words could. The avoidant may hide behind calmness, but beneath that surface is a mind constantly scanning for your presence. Proof that no matter how hard he tries to appear detached, you've already occupied a place in his thoughts he can't ignore. When an avoidant man feels jealous, he rarely shows it openly. Instead of confronting the emotion, he hides behind indifference, using silence or sarcasm as a shield. You might mention another man in passing or post a photo where you look radiant, and his reaction seems muted. Maybe just a short response or no comment at all. But beneath that calm exterior, something stirs. Avoidants struggle with jealousy because it exposes the very thing they work hardest to deny: attachment. To feel jealous means to care. To feel possessive, to want closeness. For someone who prides himself on independence, that realization is deeply unsettling. So rather than admit it, he conceals it behind cool detachment. His avoidance of jealousy doesn't mean it isn't there. It's simply disguised. When he suddenly becomes distant after you talk about another man, that's not coincidence. It's emotional retreat. He's trying to regulate feelings he doesn't understand how to handle. Instead of saying, "That made me uncomfortable," he withdraws, convincing himself that pulling away keeps him in control. But that withdrawal is his confession in disguise. His silence becomes his version of saying, "That bothered me more than I want to admit." He may even start acting differently, slower replies, shorter conversations, or subtle changes in tone. To you, it feels confusing, but for him, it's a defense mechanism. Avoidants associate emotional dependence with danger. To them, needing someone feels like weakness, so jealousy becomes an emotional mirror they don't want to face. When he sees you happy with someone else or even perceives a threat, it challenges the image he's built of himself as self-sufficient and unaffected. The internal dialogue begins. Why do I care? I shouldn't care. But he does, and because he doesn't know how to process it, he shuts down. He may distract himself, bury himself in work, or act busier than usual. It's not that he's moving on, it's that he's running from the discomfort of feeling powerless over his emotions. This kind of jealousy can also show up in subtle, passive ways. He might make light jokes about your interactions with others, framed as harmless teasing, but underneath there's a quiet sting. He may question your plans, not out of control but out of curiosity that carries hidden insecurity. Sometimes he even tries to reassert his emotional presence after feeling threatened. A random check-in message, a compliment out of nowhere, a sudden show of interest. It's his subconscious attempt to remind both you and himself that he still matters. These actions are rarely planned, they're instinctive reactions to feeling replaced or forgotten. The irony is that his jealousy is often a sign of deep emotional investment. Avoidants feel everything intensely but express it inconsistently. His calmness during moments that should provoke a reaction is often a mask covering internal chaos. He may seem unaffected, but inside he's replaying your words, analyzing every detail, wondering where he stands with you. The fear of losing emotional control becomes stronger than the emotion itself, and that's why he acts distant. He doesn't want to confront what jealousy reveals, that you've become significant enough to shake his emotional stability. You'll also notice that when an avoidant feels jealous, his energy shifts. The tone of his texts, his availability, even his humor might change. He may seem colder, not because he's angry with you, but because he's protecting himself from the vulnerability that jealousy exposes. He won't accuse or argue. Instead, he retreats into a safe zone of detachment, hoping to regain composure. It's his way of saying, I care, but I can't afford to let it show. Sometimes, that distance is followed by a sudden reappearance once he's calmed his emotions. A cycle of withdrawal and return that reflects the push-pull nature of his attachment. What makes this behavior so confusing is that the avoidant's jealousy often contradicts his actions. He might insist that he doesn't want a relationship, yet his behavior when he senses competition tells another story. He might act like you're free to do what you want, but the quiet tension in his eyes says he wishes you wouldn't. His pride keeps him from admitting it, so he buries his emotions beneath logic and detachment. But make no mistake, every time he grows quiet after seeing you with someone else, every time he distances himself without explanation, it's his way of trying to manage feelings too intense for him to name. Jealousy, for the avoidant, is proof that you've reached a place few people ever do. You've penetrated the armor he built to stay safe from love. Even when he hides it, that emotion betrays him. It reveals that beneath his self-controlled image lies a heart that fears losing you. A heart that feels more deeply than he can ever admit. When an avoidant man feels a strong emotional pull towards someone, his instinct isn't to move closer. It's to manage the connection so he doesn't lose his sense of control. To him, closeness feels like exposure, and exposure feels dangerous. So instead of allowing the relationship to flow naturally, he tries to control its rhythm. He decides when to reach out, when to retreat, when to show affection, and when to go silent. It's not because he wants to hurt you or play games, but because controlling the pace helps him feel safe. Love to him is both magnetic and terrifying, and the more he feels, the more he fears being consumed by it. This push and pull dynamic is one of the most confusing parts of being involved with someone who has avoidant tendencies. One moment he's present, affectionate, open, even vulnerable, and the next he's distant, detached, or unresponsive. It leaves you wondering what changed when in reality nothing did. What's happening is that he's feeling too much. When emotional intensity rises, his internal alarm goes off. His mind tells him that the connection is dangerous, that he's losing himself, that he needs to regain control. So he steps back, not because his feelings fade, but because they've become too real. That withdrawal is his attempt to breathe, to regain balance. Avoidants learned long ago that love often comes with pain or loss. Many of them grew up in environments where emotional closeness wasn't safe or consistent. So now, as adults, their instinct is to regulate connection by controlling distance. When you become someone who matters, you trigger both his desire for intimacy and his fear of it. He might initiate contact, reach out just enough to feel connected, but as soon as he senses emotional dependency forming, he pulls away. To you, it looks like rejection, but for him, it's self-protection. He believes that if he controls how close he gets, he can avoid the heartbreak he secretly fears. He may test your reactions without realizing it. He'll go quiet for a few days, not to punish you, but to see if you'll chase. He wants to confirm that your affection is secure even when he withdraws. When you stay calm and grounded instead of panicking, it reassures him. It tells him the connection doesn't have to be suffocating. But when you react with fear or pressure, it reinforces his belief that closeness equals loss of freedom. That's when he shuts down completely. To love an avoidant man is to understand that his need for space isn't a lack of care. It's his way of trying to manage the emotions that overwhelm him. Controlling the pace is also his way of defining emotional safety. He might reach out when he feels lonely, share a deep conversation, and then disappear just when things start to feel comfortable. That inconsistency is a sign that he's trying to balance two opposite fears, the fear of losing you and the fear of losing himself. He wants connection, but on his terms, in doses he can handle. It's like dipping his toes into the water of intimacy, but never fully diving in. Yet, every time he returns, it's proof that the bond matters. If it didn't, he wouldn't feel the need to regulate it so carefully. You might notice that he initiates small gestures of closeness but resists labels or long-term plans. That's not because he's unsure about you, it's because he's unsure about his capacity to stay open without feeling trapped. The structure of the relationship becomes his safety net. By defining boundaries, controlling communication, or keeping a sense of independence, he convinces himself he's still in charge of his emotions. But underneath that need for control lies something deeper: fear of dependency. He worries that if he surrenders fully, he'll lose the part of himself that keeps him safe. His attempts to control the pace are actually signs of emotional investment. People don't manage what they don't care about. His regulation of distance is a reflection of how much he feels, not how little. The paradox of the avoidant is that the stronger his connection with you, the more he fears it. His pullback isn't rejection, it's resistance to the vulnerability that love demands. The dance between closeness and space becomes his way of loving while surviving. It's not perfect, but it's real. The only way he knows to balance the storm of wanting you and needing to protect himself from the very thing he wants most. He may try to convince himself that he has moved on, that what he felt for you was just another chapter in his life, but deep down he knows the truth. You are not easily replaced. Avoidants often pride themselves on being independent, emotionally detached, and unaffected by loss. They tell themselves that they can walk away from anyone and be fine. Yet when someone truly reaches them on an emotional level, that belief starts to crumble. You become the quiet echo in his mind, the one memory that keeps replaying when everything else fades. He might date other people, distract himself with work, or bury himself in routines, but you'll still linger in the spaces between. When an avoidant falls for someone, the bond runs deeper than they ever intend, because they struggle to connect emotionally in the first place. Finding someone who makes them feel safe and seen is rare. So even when they try to move on, comparisons begin to form, not consciously at first, but subtly. The new person doesn't laugh the same way, doesn't listen the way you did, doesn't create the same sense of ease. These realizations creep in quietly, often in the late hours when distractions fade. He might tell himself that he's content, but the emptiness between moments betrays him. That's the mark of emotional imprint. When someone's presence remains long after they've gone. Avoidants often leave relationships thinking they're reclaiming freedom, only to realize later that what they lost was connection. At first, the space feels liberating. No expectations, no emotional pressure, no vulnerability. But after the initial relief fades, a strange stillness takes its place. He might not understand it, but that stillness is the absence of the emotional energy you brought into his life. He starts checking your profile, rereading old conversations, or finding excuses to ask mutual friends about you. He may never admit it, even to himself, but that curiosity is his heart's way of reaching back toward you. Even if he starts seeing someone new, the ghost of your connection lingers. He might project parts of you onto the new person, seeking familiarity, trying to recreate the emotional rhythm he once felt. But it never feels quite the same. Avoidants often struggle with emotional repetition. Once they've bonded deeply with someone, that person becomes the standard of emotional safety. It's not about perfection or romance, it's about how deeply they felt understood. And when that understanding is lost, it can't be replaced with surface-level affection. No matter how hard he tries to move on logically, emotionally, he remains tethered. He might not reach out directly, but his small actions reveal his attachment. The sudden like on your old photo, the random message asking how you've been, or the indirect attempt to cross paths again. These are his quiet ways of keeping the thread alive. Avoidants don't handle emotional finality well. They prefer to leave doors half open, convincing themselves that keeping a connection, just in case, maintains control. But the truth is, those lingering gestures come from longing, not control. He wants to feel that he still matters to you, that the bond isn't completely gone. It's a form of emotional self-soothing. Proof that what you shared was real, even if he couldn't sustain it. What makes this pattern even more complex is that his pride won't let him admit how much he misses you. He'll act composed, unaffected, maybe even distant. But underneath that calm exterior is a storm of unspoken emotion. Every reminder of you, a song, a place, a phrase, pulls him back into the emotional memory of you. And though he tries to suppress it, avoidance only amplifies it. The more he resists the feelings, the more they linger. That's the paradox of emotional denial. What you push away only roots deeper. For the avoidant, losing someone who truly saw them is not something time easily erases. You touched the part of him he spends his life protecting. You became a mirror that reflected who he could be if he weren't afraid. That kind of connection doesn't vanish when communication stops. It stays alive in silence, in the space between what was said and what wasn't. So even when he's with someone new or living his life, as if nothing's missing, a quiet part of him knows he hasn't replaced you. You became the exception to his emotional rules, the person who slipped past his walls. And while he may never say it, you remain the one he measures every connection against. The one he lost, but never truly let go of. So, if you've ever found yourself wondering whether the avoidant man in your life truly cares, if you've questioned his silence, his distance, or his mixed signals, remember this: love doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes it hides behind hesitation, fear, and control. The avoidant may never confess what he feels, but his actions, his patterns, and the way he keeps finding his way back to you all reveal the truth he's too afraid to say. His silence isn't emptiness, it's a different language. One built from self-protection, not lack of affection. But here's the most important thing to understand. Being someone's secret obsession is not the same as being someone's emotional home. You may be the one who awakens his feelings, the one who sees through his walls, the one who makes him realize what real connection feels like. But you cannot be the one who saves him from his fear of love. That's a journey he must take himself. You can understand him, empathize with him, even love him, but never at the expense of your own peace. Because love isn't meant to be a maze of doubt and distance. It's meant to be a space where you both feel safe to stay. If you see these signs, if he comes back, opens up, watches you quietly, hides his jealousy, controls the pace, and can't let go, it means you've reached him on a level that few ever do. You've touched something real, something human beneath the armor. But don't mistake his fear for a lack of feeling, and don't let his confusion become your cage. The truth is, you deserve a love that doesn't have to hide. You deserve someone who can say what the avoidant only shows in fragments. Someone who chooses you without hesitation, without fear, and without distance. So, appreciate the signs for what they are, reflections of his inner conflict, proof of your emotional impact. But remember, your worth lies not in being someone's secret, but in being someone's certainty. Love is not meant to be a puzzle you solve, it's meant to be a piece you feel. And the right person, when they come along, won't make you question if you're enough. They'll make you feel safe enough to never doubt it again. Thank you for listening, thank you for feeling, and thank you for reminding yourself that real love is not just about who wants you. It's about who's ready for you. Stay true to your heart, keep your standards strong, and never forget, the love that's meant for you will never need to hide. Thank you and take care.